Hey, welcome to another episode of Andy's Self Help. First things first, happy quarantine. I hope everybody's having a lovely time in this miserable time. So usually I've been trying to do motivational stuff, trying to break stuff down from my own past, trying to help out other people if I can. But I have no motivation right now. None of it's coming up. Like any of you, it just every day feels the same. Some of us still have jobs that we go to work to. So I want to do something fun, something that I like to do in my free time. I've done Myers Briggs videos before, but I want to do something a little more fun today, which is Myers Briggs and sex. What's every type like in bed? What are they like in the bedroom? Now, everything in Myers Briggs is pretty much a generalization. You can't really break it down for every type because a type is only an outline of a person. A person is made up of memories, experience, and so many years on the planet, which means you can't just identify everybody from little program. It's just not how it works, all right? Everybody's so different. And this is why they theorize, especially Dave Superpowers, that every type has 52 variants. I may be off on the number, but I'm pretty sure it's 52 variants, right? So all 16 types have 52 versions. So when I tell you about what they're like in the bed, this is just a generalization. Everyone's different. They could have different kinks. They could have different interests. They could have lower sex drives, higher sex drives, but this is just all general. So let's have some fun. Okay, so as I said, not all of this is going to be true. Some people like relationships, some don't. And with that, let's start it out. So we're going to start with the intuitives, and I'm going to just tell you what each type would be like in the bedroom and whatever else I throw in because I'm just talking out my ass all the time on this thing. So let's run with it. Let's start with, and I made a little list over here, so we got the 16 types and their functions. I put the functions on there because they mean something when you explain how people have sex. Okay, so we're going to start with the INFJ. So the INFJ is a very cautious person. They rely very much on emotion. They have to have a true connection. Most people do, but some people are completely okay with just fucking whoever walks. INFJs need the connection because in the bedroom, on average, they're a little vanilla to a little kinky, but the INFJ is a giver, which means in the bedroom, they are looking to get their partner off, whatever gets their partner to the finish line, which means they can broaden what gets them going just by whatever gets their partner off. So they may not be into, let's just go ball gags. Let's just go simple, right? Maybe they're not into getting a ball gag in the mouth and, getting fucked from behind with that. Maybe that's not their thing. Okay. But for the partner, if that's what gets their partner going, like, oh, baby, I just need that ball gag, they're going to do it. Why? Because it makes their partner happy, and if it gets them off, then it gets them off as well. So if their partner gets off, they get off. Just cautious giving, but needs the emotional connection. Pretty simple. And they're kind of the same way in a relationship, which is as long as you give a 50-50 split where you listen to them, hear them out, really understand who they are as a person, then they'll do their best to help you understand who you are. Because trust me, they already see through you on most things. That's why sex is special, because they're taking your interest to heart. So it's different than a one night unemotional stand. It means something. Let's move on to the ENFJ. So the ENFJ, unlike the INFJ, is not really cautious. The ENFJ, being the extrovert, goes out and usually gets what they want without much hesitation. However, the ENFJ is a committed and giving type. Committed meaning that, sure, they can have one-night stands, but it's not within their natural description. It's not within their natural moral code. They're more codependent on average because of that lead extroverted feeling. Actually, I forgot to do the function for INFJ. I'll go back in a second. The ENFJ, they lead with extroverted feeling, which means they feel outwardly, which means they gather the emotions of the room. So they need to have a connection with somebody to really let themselves just feel. And so when they are in a committed relationship, which is what they typically do, then the sex they give is kind of like the INFJ, where if their partner gets off, then they get off. So they will adapt to their partner's needs, kinks, wants, fetishes, whatever, to help them get off, which then gets they themselves off. But it's just a little bit more outgoing and a little bit more forward. Where the INFJ is experimentation through action, not really through verbal speaking. Now, what I was saying about the ENFJ is since they are in the moment, they live with that extroverted feeling followed by introverted intuition, which means they're going through emotions and seeing into the future to see what would be best to get them going. Now, back to the INFJ. The INFJ leads with introverted intuition, which means they're planning this all out and they already live in their head, which is the reason they need that emotional connection. It helps them get out of their head and get into the moment. They can't just do it. And so that introverted intuition is what helps them get leveled, kind of have a game plan en route, and they can work with that to make it the best sex. Because remember, ENFJs and INFJs are planners, which means they like structure, they like planning, and they like a routine and schedule. That doesn't mean that they're sick in the mud. It doesn't mean that they're one-sided. It just means that they like to kind of have a little bit of advanced time to prepare. You know what I'm saying? So the INFJ would like to learn through multiple sessions so they can build a game plan for how to get to the best result. Not saying that they can't switch it up and be spontaneous, but they like to have a plan. Introvert intuition likes to look towards the future. And if it's your lead function, then they're going to be looking towards the future, especially in sex, when they want to find out the best route to get you off. Same thing with the ENFJ, just extroverted feeling first. So they're going to be way more emotional and kind of not ever selfish, but they'll have more of their own agenda at the same time because that extroverted feeling, they got to get going too. Let's move on to the INTJ. Their sex is intense and meaningful. Like the INFJ, they live and thrive with introverted intuition, their first function, so they're always planning ahead. The difference is, because they're still a J, so they like a little bit of structure and routine and like to have stuff figured out, they are a thinker over feeler, which means that they are not in touch with their emotions as much. What does that mean? It means for them, sex is hard. Okay, it's not as easy, and not saying that they're bad at it, but for them to get the emotional connection, for it to mean something, it's much harder. They have to get out of their shell. And the INTJ, even though they are a thinker and introverted feeler, they feel a lot, and so they don't really go for hookup culture. But by the way, the INFJ and ENFJ are not hookup culture types really either. But the INTJ is not a hookup culture type. They may go bang one out every once in a while, but on average, they need a partner they connect with so they can get out of this shell and have sex. And so for them, it's a very intense kind of competitive experience for them, but it's also very meaningful because it's one of the few times they can get in touch with their emotions and let it out. So to them, this is a very grounding experience. And it's kind of the same way they are in relationships, which is very committed because they're having to put a lot of work in just to be with this person. And so introverted intuition. By the way, INFJ and INTJ, they both have demon extroverted sensing, which means mixed with their functions, too much of the real world blows them out of proportion, which means it's not wise for them to be in hookup culture because they take in too much too fast and they kind of spin out of control. So they like having the committed relationship, more structure, more organization. Okay, ENTJ, like the INTJ, a thinker, judger, so a little bit more structured, like to have a game plan, but they're extroverted and they take much more charge of the INTJ, especially within the bedroom. They're more forward about what they want, and it could be very aggressive, very dominant. They might be into, BDSM or bondage or whatever it is. That might be their thing. But for them, it's strong and passionate because just like the INTJ, they are not in touch with their emotions. So sex is a very meaningful thing. ENTJs can go into hookup culture, but they preferably like to be in a relationship. Most intuitives like to be in a relationship because if you live in your head, it's hard to get out of it, which means you need help to do it. And it's better to have a partner. So the ENTJ, their sex is strong. They are giving to their partner, but they are a take charge person. They like to dominate in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying that they're all dominant, like, straight up, but I mean, they take charge and they like to show it. And for them, they lead with extroverted thinking. So it's straight up a game plan, A to B as quick as possible. So they're ready. They're ready to throw down and show you what they mean. But they lead with introverted feeling as their demon function. Introverted feeling in your last makes you a lot of times have the am I a fraud syndrome. And so for them, sex is where they don't feel like a fraud and they're trying to be as vulnerable as possible, which is not easy for them. So it's a very emotionally connecting thing. Same thing in a relationship when you commit with them. They're very loyal. They're straight to the point as long as everything stays hunky-dory, you know what I'm saying? So they're good partners. The INFP, let's move on to them. Now, the INFP gets mixed results online. The INFP could be a huge fan of the hookup culture, but they, on average, usually like to be in a relationship. Now, the reason for this is INFPs have huge trust issues, and it takes a lot to get to know them and get into their soul. It takes a lot for them to really bond with you enough to feel it. But they can separate sex and emotion a lot of times, or they can forge their own emotion needed to make it through the session. So the INFP is emotional and spiritual, because whoever they get with, it means something when they really put their all into it. So the sex could be very weird, could be aggressive, it could be kinky, it could be just musky, sweaty fun, but it can also be passionate and romantic because that's what they're about. They're a very emotional being. That type is very much in tune with themselves and want to be in tune with someone else as well. And so sex is very deep and connected when they find the right person. And this is because they lead with introverted feeling. That's their first function, meaning there's a lot going on in here. They feel a lot and they're very in touch with it. They have their very perfect moral compass of right and wrong. Now, perfect for them, not technically perfect for everybody else. But they're followed by extroverted thinking. So when they want to get structured and build a game plan, they like to do it with a partner. So it goes into sex the same way. They get to free themselves and show this person their emotional boundaries and really let them in on what they're thinking. So they let it extroverted. Okay, they're usually pretty good in relationships. INFPs can cheat pretty often. It just depends on how healthy they are. But this kind of goes for the same for all types. The ENFP is passionate and wild. So the ENFP, and everybody's met some ENFPs, they're pretty popular type for male and female. Sex with them is passionate and wild. Now, ENFPs, you can look it up, but on average, ENFPs are pretty 50-50 on hookup culture. A lot of them love it, and a lot of them crave a partnership. But it's kind of in the same vein as INFP, where they just have trust issues. They want to make sure they can actually have a real connection, you know? So the ENFP, on average, will have hookup culture and will get in relationships, but the sex is always intimate, because even though they are looking for the person to trust, they are extroverts, which means they place trust pretty easily, especially with them being a P. P means they don't need it to be as structured. And so they kind of like going with the flow, with the moment. But on average, they can be really kinky, have super open interests, be very diverse, and be a lot of fun, very creative, and very upbeat. Now, in a relationship, kind of the same way, they're like being in a relationship with a little kid all the time who's bouncy, but is very driven. Same thing kind of in the bedroom. It's like fucking a little, you know what? It's just like fucking a very bouncy person. Someone who's like having a fun. I almost said something bad there. I'm going to stop. Then we move on to the INTP. The INTP, I put down experimental and fun. Why? Because where the ENFP leads with extroverted intuition, that is their first function. The INFP leads with introverted feeling. The extroverted intuition means they're always looking for new, fun, and exciting. And that's why I said they're very bouncy, creative, especially in the bedroom with their kinks. And so they're always looking at all the angles. And therefore, they like to try something new. And therefore, it's very, kind of exciting, vibrant. The INTP leads with introverted thinking, followed by extroverted intuition, which means they want to figure you out. And they're not connected to their emotions really at all. And so for them, sex is experimentation, especially with a partner. They want to know what you like. They want you to know what they like as well, but they want to know what you like so you can kind of build something together, see it from all the angles, introverted thinking to extroverted intuition, introverted thinking to extroverted intuition. They want to build all the angles so they can figure you out and give you the best sex you've ever had. That's the theory. Some people are just not naturally built for it. The INTP is really bad with their emotions, which means you have to connect with them on a very weird level, which is building trust first. Almost like a damaged puppy a lot, but it's not. If they're a healthy INTP, well, then they're healthy, in which case a lot easier. But on average, people are damaged. So the INTP needs some trust to go with that. And this is because introverted sensing, they're very unorganized, which means you have to be with them a lot so they can gather enough data to form a perfect picture which they can remember. And so in a relationship, they're great because they take all the time to figure you out and they're committed. Same thing in sex, experimental, it's fun. They want to have a good time and really figure it out, and they'll get you there. ENTP. The ENTP, just like the ENFP, leads with extroverted intuition, followed by introvert. When their demon is introverted sensing. So they're very unorganized, which means you need to be there a lot so they can kind of structure an outline and be with you. ENTPs can go for single culture, but they're not necessarily into it. They are very much in their heads like most intuitive, so they want a partner. However, the ENTP is all about fun. They're all about really understanding their partner from all angles, along with their own interests from all angles, and they're extroverted, so they're going to bring it out and tell people about it. ENTPs on average are very kinky because they're usually emotionally detached in a lot of ways. So they're very open to new experiences without thinking too much about it and just trying to gather new data. And for them, it's all about the fun. Same thing kind of in a relationship. They're just all about the fun and they want to commit. Usually, some people suck. Let's move on to the sensors because I'm running on 14 minutes. Holy shit. The ISTJ is organized and very routine. Now, it's not the fact they're bad lovers. It's just on average, they think they know what they like and they stick to it. But you, with enough swaying and with enough trust and time, can get them to be kinky and be weird. But on average, the ISTJ is all about commitment. They're not much for hookup culture. And for them, they like having a routine. They like figuring out what works to get you off. And so they like to understand if they can do it every time. They're looking for that repetition. So for them, sex is very structured and organized. Sometimes even having like a weekly routine where it's like, we're going to fuck on Tuesday and Thursday. Fridays are off day. And then Saturday, we're getting real weird. But in a relationship, committed. And they know what they want. So ESTJ is different because where the ISTJ leads with introverted sensing, hence them trying to build a routine. Introverted sensing is very much building from the past and understanding the past and building a routine through that. It's very organized and detailed, kind of like a filing cabinet. So the ISTJ leads with introverted sensing, and their demon is extroverted intuition, which means they suck at looking at multiple options. Hence why they build a routine. They don't want to have to think of something new every time. They want to have it figured out. Where the ESTJ leads with extroverted thinking, followed by introverted sensing. So they're very dominant and forceful in what they want. They're going to tell you what they need. But because, like the ISTJ, they are a thinker, it's not very emotional. And for them, their demon is introverted feeling, like the ENTJ. So they have that fraud syndrome. So they have to prove to themselves that they are great in bed, which means they want you to make them work for that. And they can be rough. They can be dominant. They're usually still very structured, being that J. So they like to have it figure out a routine that works best for them because they want to get off and get you off. But they're very dominant, and it's very competitive because, as I put, intense, competitive. They need to make sure it works out for them. And they have to make sure that they completed this internal challenge they built of being like, I'm the greatest, I can do this, I got you off. Same thing in a relationship, very intense, usually committed, anything can change, so because you're usually power hungry. ISFJ, giving and emotional. ISFJs are pretty simple. As long as you're happy, they're happy. ISFJs on average are not very kinky, but they are very giving, like the INFJ, where they live for their partner. And ISFJs are 100% relationship prone over being single and hookup culture. They do it like anybody else. When you're single, sometimes it just works out that way. But they're much more about being in a relationship and giving to their partner. You want to try something kinky with them, and you tell them how much you love them and how much you care, and not in a way to get in their pants, but you're in a real relationship. You care and they trust you. They'll give anything a shot once. Great to be with in a relationship, and great to honestly. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so let's move on from that and go to the ESFJ, which is lively and romantic. The ESFJ, like the ISFJ, is very giving. They're very much about the partner. ESFJs are 50-50 on hookup culture. Some like to do it, some don't. I forgot to say that ENTJ is pretty good in hookup culture, mostly because they're usually busy, so they just fuck and go. But they like relationships like a lot of people. The ESFJ is 100% about relationships, but they're also really good being single until they find somebody worth their time. They're okay with taking it slow. So they like to be in a relationship and build a connection with their partner. And like the ISFJ, as long as they're happy, or as in their partner is getting off, then they'll get off. And they like to make it an emotional experience that means something. And this is because where the ISFJ, like the ISTJ, it leads with introverted sensing, which means the ISFJ is very much about capturing the past and understanding it to apply to the future to make the best routine that gets their partner off. And they also, their final function is extroverted intuition, which means they're also bad at multiple options. So they like to be able to figure you out. So they're not good with a lot of change, but they want to make you happy, so they'll adapt. Where the ESFJ leads with extroverted feeling. So just like the ENFJ, they're very much about what their partner needs, and it's very outward with their emotion, and they want you to be happy so they can feel the best that they can be. And just like the ENFJ, they fall their introverted, their demon is introverted thinking, which means it's not as logical, which means they don't want you to break them. They want to know they can trust you. They want to know that they put the right person or the right hands on them, so to speak. And they don't want to know they were wrong. So they just kind of go into it blindly and trust you, hoping it works out. So in a relationship, ESFJs are great. They're perfect. They're, for male or female, they're the perfect one to bring to a party. Everybody usually likes the ESFJ. In the bedroom, as long as you're happy, they're happy. And it can get kinky, it can get weird, and it can be mild. Whatever works best for you. The ISTP, no connection, very physical. The ISTP is weird. They're a great type. They're very much introspective and try to understand themselves. But like the INTP, their demon function is extroverted feeling. So like the INTP, sex is emotional for them in a way where when they get a committed partner, it brings out that emotion. It's weird for them, so they have to have a lot of trust. But unlike the INTP, they don't really need a relationship. ISTPs are emotionally detached to the point that they're all about hookup culture, but they're also all about having a relationship. They don't care either way most of the time. But like most humans, they'll say that they want to find a partner because nobody wants to be alone. So ISTP, like the INTP, leads with introverted thinking. And what this means is they want to figure someone out. And so when they have sex, they're just trying to figure out what gets them from A to B. Can they get their partner up and get themselves off? So it becomes more competitive over emotional. Hence why I put no connection in physical. There's not a lot of emotional connection. You have to build that with them. You have to show them you want it so they can kind of click that gear and focus. But until then, it's just the physicality. They fuck who they want. And they just try their best to make sure everybody gets off. And a relationship, they can be great because they're pretty hit or miss and they're pretty go with the flow. So as long as you keep them happy, they keep you happy. With the ESTP, which they are all about hookup culture. The ESTP is the number one ranked type to be single and just run from, we'll go body to body, person to person, whatever. They just go from the next to the next, bee to pollen, you know what I'm saying? They're explorers and they're open. Now, what does this mean? They're very open to new experiences. They'll tell you if they don't like it. And this is due to the fact that the ESTP leads with extroverted sensing and their final function is introverted intuition. Now, what this means is they don't think of the future. Therefore, and their first function is extroverted sensing, so they're very much present. They're in the moment. So for them, looking at tomorrow, they're looking at tonight, which means they're ready to try anything. They don't care. They just want to have some fun and they want to gain a new experience and see what's up and get their blood pumping. So the ESTP will explore many new avenues, try many new things, orgies, gangbangs, whatever, strap on, I don't know, all of it. And so they're open, they're explorers, and they're a lot of fun to have sex with, just very open. But in a relationship, it's hit or miss because ESTPs are pretty prone to cheating. And remember, this is all conjecture. I'm not saying that every ESTP is a cheater. I'm just saying on average, usually they're a cheater or they're just looking to find a new avenue, or they get bored easily. That's a good way of putting it. Not necessarily that they're cheaters. They just get bored easily, so they may break up with people a lot. So sex to them can be emotional if they find the right person, but on average, it's more of an exploratory avenue. The ISFP is connected and emotional. So the ISFP also is okay with hookup culture. They can run person to person, but they, like most, prefer a relationship. Now, with them in a relationship, because they lead with also introverted feeling, and their final function is extroverted thinking, just like the INFP. They are very much emotional. They feel deep inside. And when they find a partner that they can truly trust, it's an emotional experience that they want to get them off and they want to get themselves off, but they want it to really mean something. They want to pump their partner up and make them feel good about themselves. So that way it's a really emotional experience that you remember. And it makes you feel good about yourself. And so that's an ISFP, connected and emotional. They want to connect to you and they want to show you who they are and they want you to see who they are and they want you to see who you are. And they want you to just kind of come together and have an emotional experience in being. In a relationship, they can be cheaters, but it's usually from different causes. Maybe they're just conflicted internally over something, but on average, they're very loving and caring partners. So same thing in the bedroom, very loving, caring, outgoing, can be kinky, can be wild. It just depends. The ESFP, which is what we're going to finish up on, feeler. So just like the ISFP, it's going to be a little emotional, but the ESFP is also, next to the ESTP, the number one type, they're technically number two, to be in hookup culture and not require a relationship. On average, they're pretty hit or miss on it. They'll be in a relationship, but they don't care. They can actually differentiate between sex and emotion. They are emotional, but they can differentiate between sex because they just want the excitement. They want the experience, Same thing as the ESTP. They lead with extroverted sensing and finish with introverted intuition. So they're not focused on the future. They are in the here and now. And the here and now says, I want to try something new. So they're very exciting and fun in bed. And when I say fun, just like the ENTP or the INTP, they're very wild. You never really know what's going to happen next. And they want to get you off, but they really want to get themselves off. So it's kind of selfish. And that's due to the introverted feeling, which sometimes makes them seem a little bit deeper in bed, like where you're like, oh fuck, I gotta have sex with them and I gotta grab that again. It's what you're wanting, but it doesn't mean anything to them. They can just, like I said, they can differentiate between the sex and the emotion. If you get in a relationship with them, they'll care about you, they'll be nurturing, they'll stick with you, and the sex will pretty much stay exciting. And so that, I think, covers it all. J is like a little bit more structure and routine. Feelers like a little bit more emotion. It's a little bit more connected. Intuitives are more in their head, so they prefer to make it a one-on-one experience with somebody. Introverts, on average, are also more prone to be with just one person over many, but not always true. Extroverts, like introverts, they're more apt to go out and get what they want, but they also kind of like a mono. Sensors, on average, are more routine and more in the moment in sex. And you know what? Routine's a bad word. They usually know what they like more. And so they're more in the moment about things, and therefore sex can seem more intense with them sometimes. It just depends on the person. Thinkers, it's just more emotionally detached on average. It's not the fact that thinkers are kinkier than feelers, but thinkers on average are more likely to try something new over a feeler, because thinkers, it's just like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Anything's worth it, right? Let's see if I feel something. And P's are pretty open, go with the flow. They like to just have fun most of the time and be free. That wraps it up. Sorry for making it so long. I hope you enjoyed it.